All right, welcome in. It is 10 a.m. We're already laughing backstage. We're ready to go. It is Thursday, and just another day, another slate of games. And you know what? You had to expect this. We appeased the casuals yesterday, making Creighton the feature game because if you polled like actual college basketball fans, no one would ever say that was the feature game yesterday. Today, I'm going to override any of the top 25 stuff. The feature game is Brian Power's alma mater, the Ohio Bobcats, taking on what I consider to be one of the better mid-major teams in the country in the Illinois State Redbirds. We have a Missouri Valley guy in Rob Vino. We have an Ohio Bobcat alum in Brian Power. So that's where we're starting today. That is the feature game, the best game on Thursday slate by a mile, in my opinion. So welcome in, boys. I'll go to Rob first. Illinois State, Ohio. How do you see this one going down? This is in Athens tonight. Yes, it is. Athens at the Convocation Center tonight.
Yeah, this is a big one, guys. These two teams, well, you can tell by the point spread, right? 1.5. These are two pretty evenly matched teams on paper. Let's start with Ohio U, which lost here Monday night to Arkansas State. I'm going to bring up Arkansas State here for a reason, but Arkansas State, we'll dive into them a little bit. Head coaching change there. Ryan Pannone, a Nate Oates disciple, comes in. Interestingly, guys, he took over for Brian Hodgson, another Nate Oates disciple who didn't follow the Nate Oates way at Arkansas State, slowed them down. I think I read somewhere where they only played 6 total games last year, over 70 possessions. That's just not Nate Oates' style. So in comes Pannone, who decides, I'm playing Nate Oates' style. And he walks in here with that high pressure. Again, we'll use I don't have to use anything. Everybody knows Nate Oates at Alabama, Nate Oates at Buffalo. You know the style they play. They win the game, 89-85. Arkansas State had 14 new players Monday night. They shoot 58.6% from 2, 37% from 3 in typical Nate Oates style. And this is probably low. We'll see more of this. We'll see this number increase, guys, as the season goes on. But Arkansas State shot 27 threes against Ohio U and went to the free throw line 28 times. That just goes with the style of play, 28 free throws. They essentially walked in there unproven, untested, all that newness. And they beat Ohio U at a game that Ohio U really likes to play. Ohio U wants to go up tempo as well. I think it's all relevant here because Illinois State is going to increase tempo a little bit this year as they get, let's just say they're more veteran. They have a core 4. They go about 8 deep. They went fairly fast last year. I made a lot of money last year, probably more money than on any other team playing Illinois State overs. But those overs weren't the type of over that we're looking at tonight. We're looking at 146s, 147s last year, 145s. Illinois State was getting over. They come in here, like I say, 8 deep. They shoot the 3. They win 22 games last year. They win the CBI, which should be a stepping stone to a better season this year with all the returning talent that they have. They're a top 3 contender in the Missouri Valley. The only question to me is, can Ohio U or will Ohio U lose back-to-back home games? It's a quick turnaround, home redemption game against a team that they're capable of beating. They're just as good, at least on paper, as the other side. They have a core 4 returning. They add Javon Simmons to this team. Hardaway was the best player on the floor the other night for Ohio U. So there's assets there as well. I would say this real quick. Ohio U didn't play bad Monday night. Arkansas State just played better. What you find when you go through the numbers and looking at the game a little bit on replay, they got crushed on the boards. 41-25, Ohio U gets destroyed in rebounding. Can Illinois State do the same? I'm not sure. As I mentioned earlier, I made a lot of money last year betting on Illinois State totals. This one's a little bit too high for me. I can't get there at 157, 157.5. I think Illinois State is the slightly better team, but the situational angle keeps me off of that too. I think Ohio U could very well bounce back and win a home game. They got one under their belt. Illinois State, it's their opener for the season. So it's a lot of descriptives and a lot of analysis to not play a game, but I just can't come up with a clear side or total in this one, guys. These are two teams. you probably want to watch all season long. You probably are going to end up on quite a bit this season. I know I will with Illinois State. So, Brian, I'll let it over to you and see what you got in Ohio U for us.
Well, some could accuse me, if you will, of being a little biased in this situation. But I was talking to our good friend Trigg, Keith Landry, who is in the chat as we speak. And
you bet. I see him.
Yes, and he can vouch for this, that this happened. He and I were talking about this game. Actually, before I even knew this would be our featured game here on the fourth day of Full Court Press. And we both came to the conclusion that Ohio U is the right side here. I'm going to go ahead. I'm gonna lead off. I'm going to come out swinging. We lost our parlay yesterday after going 2 for 2. The show began by going 2 for 2 with our 3-leg parlays. We're off, so we need to bounce back. I'm throwing my leg right in. It is Ohio University on the money line here. Look, I like Rob. I spent a lot of time poring over this box score of Ohio and Arkansas State from the other night. Rob's right. The rebounding was a problem. What was interesting, though, is you get destroyed on the glass, Rob. Typically what you see is a team will then have end up with far fewer field goal attempts. That actually wasn't the case with OU. What happened was Arkansas State lived at the foul line, and they cashed in. I mean, free throw shooting is one of those high variance stats in modern college basketball, right? I mean, some teams just aren't good at making them. Some teams will make you pay. Arkansas State went to Athens, and they went 25 of 28 from the line. That was the difference in a 4-point win where they scored 57 points in the second half. OU's got to be better at guarding the three. They were terrible at guarding the three last year. Okay. One of the worst teams in the entire country. Pavletsky back. Rob mentioned some of the new talent that came in. Simmons, Connors. I think OU is not going to lose back-to-back home games to start the year. I will take them on the money line here. I think you can still get a pretty cheap price, Trigg. Let's confirm that price. I don't want to be telling people to bet like minus 145 because I know the market is moving in the direction of the Bobcats. It was minus 120, I believe, when I looked last.
Yeah, I was going to say
even minus 110. I even saw some minus 110s before we talked, but I think that had come up. So hold on here.
I see it kind of bouncing back and forth. I still see it looks like pick. I think Ohio +1 might still be out there. No, it's -1. Okay.
You
know what?
I see a lot of minus 115s.
Yeah, we'll take that's good.
Minus 108 at DraftKings, a wildly available book. Now in bed with ESPN. My sources behind me are yelling that DraftKings is now in bed with ESPN. I don't know what we're allowed to talk about. What's not.
ESPN couldn't withdraw fast enough.
So this is I have a couple of things that support your argument here, Brian. My friend Ryan Hammer, great college basketball follow, absolutely someone you should be following, puts out awesome content, tweeted this out a couple weeks ago. And I took a screenshot of it, not knowing that we would talk about this here, but I found it in my phone because it was something I wanted to remember. And he posted, college basketball's best statistical home court advantages, last 3 years of home versus non-home difference in win percentage, net rating, opponent field goal, and attendance. And so he had the power conference, or the entire country, which is mostly power conferences, on the left, and the non-powers on the right. When the budget increases for this show, I'll have it on screen. But for now, you're just going to have to take my word for it. The number one, so a power conference being defined as like the Power Five. Non-power would be everyone else. So the number one non-power to hit all those metrics is Dayton, which should surprise nobody. I've been to the UD Arena. It is incredible spot. And it's well known that Dayton wins all their games there for the most part. The number 2 on that non-power list is the Convocation Center in Athens, Ohio. So if you need something to back up how good they've been at home, not just like how good
last year was real stark. Last year was very, very stark. Yeah, they were a completely different team, home versus road.
Completely different team, home versus road. You come off of a home loss, which Rob kind of pointed out. Hey, like Arkansas State, they're a good team. They're going to be in the mix in that league again, and they just played a really good game. Sometimes you have to tip your cap. You go back to this game last year in Normal, Illinois. Illinois State was the host. This is a return game. Ohio led in the second half of that game. I think had like a decent lead, maybe like an 8 to 10 point lead. And Illinois State just like did what they can do, started hitting every shot. I think they ended up I think that game got to 160 last year, which, Rob, I'm seeing 160 now across the board for the total of this game. So, what your argument for an over like points certainly makes sense, but it looks like the market thinks the same, right? That's up to 160, open 156.5. Now I'm seeing 160.5. So the market definitely thinks there's going to be some points in this game. But yeah, Ohio coming off of a tough loss where they didn't play badly, I wouldn't want to go against them here. So even though my personal number, I'm at like Illinois, I may have to re-weight out my home court for Ohio. I may have to add more points for home court for them because I was at Illinois State -3.5 here. And I'm like, for a number, and I'm going to like retract that on air and say I didn't add enough in for Ohio home court. It gets me back closer to like probably 1.5 or 2. So even though I think Illinois State's a better team, not nearly a big enough edge for me to go against Ohio coming off a loss on their home floor. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, let's peel open the box score from last year, shall we? You were spot on, Trigg. It did end up at 160 on the nose last year. Illinois State wins 85-75 at home. OU leads by 6. They had a 6-point lead midway through the second half of that game before they let it get away. And what was the key? I mentioned in my initial breakdown that the Bobcats had all sorts of trouble defending the 3 last year. Well, Illinois State in that game shot 52.6% from 3. They shot 61.2% for the game. That's not going to happen at the corner of Richland and Route 682, guys.
Keith Landry says it's Thirsty Thursday in Athens. I mean, if anyone would know about that, it would be you. So is that a thing?
Look. This has been a big week in A-Town. Obviously, last weekend, the biggest party of the year, Halloween. It is legitimately the best Halloween celebration in this country down in Athens, Ohio, every year. At least it was in my day. It was a little annoying for actually as a student there because getting where you want to go. All of a sudden, you have thousands of people flooding Court Street. And then, of course, Tuesday, we beat Miami to kick off action in football. That was also on campus. So, yeah, could round out a big week of partying. Although I hear college students don't party like they used to, which is sickening.
Sad. Yeah, Brian and I were in Pittsburgh after a Pitt Panthers game a couple weeks ago.
Against Duke.
National
television. No one's drinking after the game, Rob.
It wasn't Tuesday.
I'm a parent, and I'm whining about kids not drinking. Where is the underage?
Brian and I just wanted to find a bar. It was a 9 p.m. game. Yeah. It was a 9 p.m. game, national TV. So it got out around 11, and we just wanted to find a bar to get a drink at, and you couldn't find one close to the arena. So
the burrito was okay.
Can I add real quick, guys? Can I add to the list of things on the Ohio U resume as a father of a Belmont student? The very first time ESPN drove their trucks to the Michael Curb Center in Nashville to cover Belmont on ESPN News or U or whatever they were on, it was against Ohio U, believe it or not. So Ohio U, another thing on their resume, first team to play Belmont in an ESPN televised game. How about that?
Was that the old Bracket Busters days or something like that? Probably.
It was a night game. When you guys said 9 o'clock at night, reminded me that was a night game, late night, which was really weird for Belmont, a Central Time Zone team, to be playing that late at night. And Ohio U was clearly the better team, but they lost. Belmont did win that game, so it was a big night for Bruiser Bruin and the Belmont, faithful.
Matt in the chat says, "Love the new show. Listen to the podcast version every day." We appreciate the feedback, and we have 45 minutes. Rest of the show, it's going to be all questions from the chat. So that's the goal here. Get in. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out one more thing about this Ohio 3-point defense. By the way, I talked about Ryder and its inability to hit threes. That came back to bite them again last night. Just we're not just pulling stuff out of thin air, gang. But with the Illinois State shooting so well in that meeting last year, they were overall not a good 3-point shooting team last year. Outside the top, they were close to 300th in 3-point shooting nationally, which obviously is not good at all. They're at home. They hit them against this Ohio team, who I think, and Rob, I don't know, feel free to maybe correct me if you feel differently. 3-point defense is one of those stats that can vary wildly from year to year. Yes, you have teams that year in, year out stink at defending the arc, and some teams that are very good at it. But I think, you look at a team like Ohio, that it feels like an outlier what happened to them last year from outside, what they allowed their opponents to shoot.
Just general theory, guys, I feel like the faster paced game you play, the more broken court there is, the more open threes there are. So if you're a fast-paced team, you probably give up threes at a higher percentage than a team that wants to come down and settle in and anchor into a half-court defense and defend the perimeter, et cetera, et cetera. And Ohio, you played at pace last year, so it makes a little bit of sense. They gave up 37% the other night to Arkansas State, which isn't a monstrous number, but it's a high enough number to get beat with, as they found out. If you combine it with free throw shooting and a rebounding disadvantage, et cetera, whether or not Illinois State, first of all, Illinois State won't play a Nate Oates style. That's one thing. And second of all, whether or not Illinois State can dominate on the glass the way that Arkansas State did that night. Those are all, like you say, high variance stuff, Brian. But I do think the faster you play, the more apt you are to give up more open threes, which just leads to a higher percentage.
And the problem in that Arkansas State game was the volume, right? Because Arkansas State got off 27 threes against OU in the opener. So if you're attempting 27 threes, you don't even need to shoot necessarily a great percentage. You're gonna make a fair number regardless.
Yeah, it's going to be a great watch tonight. Production won't clip that, but that is as good of a 13-minute discussion on this game as you're going to find. And Brian Power has kicked off Thursday's parlay with Ohio on the money line. So we're off and running here. I'm going to move on. It wouldn't be an Adam Trigger college basketball show if we didn't go from that game directly to the extra board, but that's what we're going to do. And Jay Buff is in the chat. He says, "Night sweatshirt Trigg." Let me move that comment.
What up, Buff?
Let me move that comment so you can see my LeMoyne Dolphins hoodie. LeMoyne Dolphins right here in Syracuse, New York. I know Jay Buff's been to his share of LeMoyne. That's it. Listen, if you're looking for a
does he have the picture of the chick?
I was gonna say, don't let's not get Joe Ranieri in here to talk about LeMoyne.
That is
again.
Yeah, that's a reference to the OG show when we used to do the college basketball show. We had a running joke with LeMoyne, and I'll tie that in because that was the first year LeMoyne. That was the first year LeMoyne was in Division I.
Yes,
and they overachieved. They played better than I think anyone gave them a chance to play. Finished third or fourth in the NEC in their first year, and last year took a pretty big step back. And the reason that this team took a step back last year is they didn't defend at all. And I look at this team this year, but so they had some good players on that team last year. AJ Dantzler's now at Coastal Carolina. O'Cypher Owens is at Tarleton State. They had some players that went on to play who are now at bigger schools. And I think the perception here is that LeMoyne lost some of their best guys, but I think they might have, Dantzler's a great shooter, but I think those were some of the offenders of playing absolutely zero defense. And, going back, seeing Nate Champion, LeMoyne head coach, sort of bring this team from D2 to D1 and going back 2 years ago, that was a better defensive team. And I know he wants to stress defense a little bit more this year with this roster who still has a good amount of players back from last year. And I think if you look at them in the context of the NEC, one of the low major conferences out there, one of the smallest conferences, perennial 16 seed in the NCAA tournament. This team's got, in my opinion, just as much to be excited about as the top teams in this league, some of which we might talk about today. LIU, Central Connecticut State. I'm not saying that on a talent level they're on par with them, but this could be a pretty good team. Now I'll kick this over to Rob, who can give us the Xavier side of the coin a little bit here. Richard Pitino, first year. Looks to me like this is going to be very much a rebuild. And if you go back in Richard Pitino's career, he's almost okay with that. If you go back to his first year at New Mexico, they finished 10th in the Mountain West. New Mexico, with their eyes closed, should be able to finish better than 10th in the Mountain West most years. But I think it speaks to Richard Pitino wanting to build a team his way, get freshmen in, that are going to be with the program for a couple of years. Go back, Minnesota, he did well with the team he inherited, but then like year 2 or year 3 was a total rebuild. He was at the bottom of the conference. I think he feels like his job security is probably okay, so he's not worried about losing in year 1. Marist hung around with Xavier the other night. Xavier's getting bet up here, like they're just going to win this game by 30. I got to disagree with that. I kind of like the Dolphins, Brian.
The LeMoyne Dolphins going swimming with LeMoyne.
There's no water out here. I don't know why. It's a religious reference. We have no ocean near Syracuse. Just if anyone was confused as to where they're located. But Rob, talk to me about Xavier. Why are they taking all this money here?
Yeah, well, it's got to be first off on reputation, right? And second off on the transfer class that a guy like Pitino is going to bring in. But we've talked about it at length this week, guys, because it's opening week. And we just talked about it with Arkansas State. It's almost the same thing, right? Richard Pitino wants to play extremely fast. Arkansas State walked into Ohio U with 14 new players. This is basically what Xavier's facing, right? An entire transformation of the roster designed to play his way. And the one word we've used over and over again, at least I have, is cohesion or gelling. How long does that take? We don't. This team in January, we may talk a lot different than we talk about them in early November, right? We just don't know if these kids are all going to mesh. We know they're going to enjoy playing the system. There's no question about it. And we know that he's got talent on this team that exceeds what LeMoyne has on paper by probably the amount of points that's listed in the point spread here. But it's the start of the season, and we just don't know what evaluation process is going to take place, what experimentation, how do I fix these rotations? These coaches are always playing with this stuff at the start of a season when they got new guys. So, again, it's hard to gauge. Some of these teams have come out of the gate quickly. We've seen it. Some of these teams have come out of the gate slowly. I mean, just to use Auburn as kind of an example of and it's not even a major coaching change, right? It's father handing the baton to son, but it made a difference in their opening game. So I don't know where I would lean here, Adam. I would, LeMoyne's, what's the Xavier team total in that game? Anybody got that offhand? Where's my odds?
I can get that real quick.
Brian's going to get that. And while he gets that, I just want to point
90 and a half, and it's DraftKings is at 91.5. It's interesting because the game total hasn't really I'm looking at the screen. The total, because Trigg mentioned Xavier's getting bet up here. The total really is not, which is interesting, I suppose.
So that is directly based on the fact that LeMoyne played no defense last year. This team, now granted, the Marist Red Foxes are scrappy as hell. They're a MAC school. John Dunn, it has zero interest in the offensive end of the floor. He is going to get guys that just want to, scratch and claw you to death. That's a good defensive team. Xavier, 66 points against them the other night, 66-62. They were on the ropes there for a minute against Marist. Now, Marist is a quality team. Marist, I would have, they're a superior team to LeMoyne, but it doesn't mean that they just didn't maybe get a little bit of a blueprint to say, hey, because from a size standpoint, they're not going to be able to do it as well as Marist did, but they can certainly look at that and say, well, this is how an undersized team went in and sort of defended this Xavier team and played them to a 66-62 final. I gotta recall the LeMoyne opener last year when some of those offensive guys missed and they almost went into the Carrier Dome and won. It's not the Carrier Dome anymore. To me, it will always be the Carrier Dome, but they were a possession away last year from knocking off Syracuse as a similar size underdog in the Dome. And that was opening night. They gave a tremendous defensive effort. After that, it just sort of went out the window as the season went on. So I would say under makes sense. And my number here is 22.5. Now where it is at 25, I have to lean toward the dog. I think I would just take the 25 with LeMoyne. Rob, I'm going to go back to you for a different game. If you had something else to add there, go ahead. But we have Danzo in the chat wants UC Riverside. I know you had a take on that one, so I'll let you wrap up LeMoyne if you want to, and then you can head on over to that game.
Yeah, I can't really disagree with anything, Adam. I think the line move one more time as we try to figure out why people are so in love with Xavier in this particular game. It's to me, reputation based, and second game, perhaps a little better offensive showing. But to your point, if you just do the sheer mathematics of it, they have to be 26 points better than they were against Marist to cover that team total. And is their offense going to be 26 points better combined with LeMoyne's defense being 26 points worse? That combo has to somehow add up to 26 to get it over. I don't know. It's a tough handicap for me. Real quick, and I'm going to get into UC Riverside and North Dakota here real quick. But guys, I just wanted to bring these couple things up, and maybe I'll kind of start the show this way with just a couple of fast examples. We don't like to review too much. We like to get right into what we're talking about today. We have a little extra time. A couple of things that struck me last night. Seriously, Maryland Eastern Shore, 29 points against Georgia in a full game, 94-29. Are you kidding me? And then to make it worse, guys, I went back, and Maryland Eastern Shore's first game was a pretty close game. Let me go ahead and get that result for it. It was amazing to me that you could come out there. Yeah, the first game they played Georgia Tech into overtime, 56-52, and then come out with a 29-point performance. Absolutely ridiculous.
I want to, but before we go to UC Riverside, because I feel like this might apply to a game tonight. So let's talk about a different one first. We can bring Brian into the conversation. Would you fade Bethune Cookman tonight based on sort of what you're saying? Because Tarleton saw something similar last night where they played SMU, they left it all out there for 40 minutes, and they were like just not the same team 2 nights later. They were totally gassed. They had a guy get hurt, and it just went off the rails. That's what happened to Maryland Eastern Shore. Listen, putting an effort in against a power conference school like that is tough enough. What happens when you have to turn around and play another one 2-3 days later? That's what you're dealing with here. And I feel like that's kind of what you've just brought up. So elaborate on your point, and then maybe, comment on Bethune-Miami being that same thing tonight.
Oh, yeah. Well, it makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, obviously we put a lot of stock in Tarleton's first performance yesterday on the show. Didn't pan out, but you have to, watch and learn from that. And it is when you, play a game, I'll use your words, Adam, when you lay it all out on the line against the power conference team for 40 minutes and then have to have a quick turnaround with travel, go play another one. It can be, and then lose a guy along the way. It can be extremely tough. 29 points to me, I thought was the key there. It just doesn't seem, feasible in modern day college basketball. You could only score 29. I'm going to move on really, really fast here to South Carolina Upstate, which defeated Fresno State. For those who don't stay up late, USC Upstate wins that game by 1. Brian, go ahead. I can see why.
I was going to say, what's going on with the Mountain West? That's 2 nights in a row now because UNLV lost to UT Martin as well. So, Trigg, I think you mentioned one of the first 2 days, the Mountain West isn't as what it used to be. I think we've already seen Exhibit A and Exhibit B of that.
Not a great start for the Mountain West for sure.
And then lastly, where last night's concerned, let's just wrap it up with, there was no Tanner Thomas last night, Trigg. I kicked myself for not taking 8.5, although you would have barely covered. But EWU has now played 2 pretty good games on the road against solid opponents. And when we get to Big Sky play Eastern Washington, just put a little red, check mark next to them if you're following the show. See what we can do with Eastern Washington along the way. But let's get to the Cal Riverside North Dakota game here real quick. Cal Riverside opens up their season. They beat La Sierra, who cares, 90-49. North Dakota, on the other hand, goes to Tuscaloosa, loses to Alabama by almost 30, 91-62. A couple days later, come home. Focus on Cal Riverside here because we've been focusing on coaching changes, et cetera, et cetera. Cal Riverside loses all 5 starters off of last year's 21-13 team, a pretty good team under Mike Magpayo, who goes to Fordham now to become the head coach. They bring in a Division II head coach, Gus Arginal, who's been around Division I programs. He's been around a little bit, but he's an Eric Musselman disciple. What does Eric Musselman disciple mean for those watching the show who don't know about his coaching career? Basically, Eric Musselman's a guy who wants to win on the defensive end, requires rebounding effort. It's more of a methodical run when we get an opportunity type of head coaching philosophy. Wasn't exactly that in Arkansas, but Arkansas is a different school, a different program since Nolan Richardson made them high speed. But that's what Musselman wants to do, and that's what Arginal wants to do here. How about this, guys? Gus Arginal, in an interview, said he wants his team to make 200 passes a game. He said it's probably not possible, but our goal is 200 passes on offense in 40 minutes. If you make 200 passes, you can't help but grind the clock down continuously. It's the exact opposite style of what UND just played at Alabama. We've talked about Nate Oates' system. We won't rehash it, but it's a 360-degree polar opposite opponent here. For North Dakota, we'll take a look, and you find that they lost 4 starters. But most importantly, Trayson Eaglestaff goes to West Virginia. He's a guy who scored 51 in a game last year, but he was their leading scorer, their best shooter. And with him, they lose 4 stars. Another guy went to Xavier, I believe, another high major team. So they've got some spots to fill here. I'm going to say that with the new head coaching change at UCR, it just seems like defensive tenacity is going to be on display here. And they did hold a non-Division I team under 50 points the other night. Obviously, North Dakota is a little bit better than that. But North Dakota's quest to play with tempo constantly may not be there for 40 minutes against this opponent, guys. And UND, for what it's worth, it's not exactly an interior scoring team. They want to shoot the ball from the perimeter, and UCR seems to match up really, really well on the defensive side against that. I looked at this total. It started, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't have the odds logic in front of me, but I think it started somewhere in the 152 vicinity, since been bet down to 150. I totally agree. 150 just seems to be too high here. I never like to, in fact, I'll phrase it differently. I do like to always assume that the home team in a battle of tempos can control tempo for, more than 50% of the 40 minutes available. But this team, UCR, with their defensive philosophy and with their methodical philosophy, can probably control tempo for 12 to 15 minutes here. And that's going to be enough to keep this thing under 150. Brian, we've said it a couple of times this week. It's sometimes hard to get to 140. Getting over 150 with a team that doesn't want to go to 150 even harder. So, guys, I'll just put that in right now as my leg of the parlay here. The UC Riverside, North Dakota game under 150, if that's even still available. I know they were betting it down earlier.
All right. Sweet. We got two of the 3 legs in there already here.
Well,
only halfway through the show.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to go. So, first of all, Garth, very, very kind of you. Thank you for the donation to the show. It's very much appreciated. And I'm going to take this one, and I had a pretty strong opinion here, and I think because Garth has stepped in with that, I think that's going to push me over to make this my leg of the parlay. So I will grab Boston College Citadel. If anyone has a comment after I make my player, you want to tell me I'm wrong, you'll feel free to jump in. But I think my thought process in this game is in line with the way Garth is looking. Now, he said thoughts on the Citadel team total under 62.5. My handicap certainly would suggest that occurs because I like Boston College minus the points here. So I'll start with Citadel. I think this is going to be one of the worst teams in the country this year. I think they will finish last in what I consider to be a SoCon that's not quite as good as it's been in years past. Some really good players have left the conference. I think you have certain teams. I mean, just go, one of your SoCon sort of, the teams that's supposed to be one of the top teams in this league, Furman, run off the floor by High Point the other day, not even close. I think this is a down year for UNC Greensboro, which we kind of saw play out in the second half of that Kansas State game. They've been one of the better teams in this league the last couple of years. So I'm kind of down across the board on the SoCon, but specifically, I think Citadel, I think they may not win a league game. This is a roster that's they probably have 4 guys coming from like D2 schools that are not like that are not like D2 powers really, that are probably going to play big minutes for them this year. I mean, the guys they have back are not great play. Like I just don't see much in the way of like redeeming qualities for this team. But on the other side, now Boston College is interesting because I personally think they're going to be better than last year. Now, how much better? It's tough because they play in the ACC. They're probably still a bottom team in the ACC, but for me, a lot of people have them at the bottom of the ACC. I don't. I think they could actually play their way out of the total basement and into maybe 12th or 13th. Reason I say that is last year, like they were just bad, like poorly constructed, bad basketball team. I went to one of their first games last year. It was BC played VCU on a neutral court in Annapolis. And I went down there. It was a doubleheader. It was BC, VCU, Navy, Harvard. So I got to see 2 games. And that Boston College team was such a disaster in that game. I kind of followed them through the rest of the year, and it never got better. It was basically they took such poor shots all year long. Like they just had there was just no easy offense. And at times, I was like, felt like they played hard. Like they weren't poorly coached. There's a game that comes to mind when they almost beat Syracuse in the Dome last year, like where I just felt like they were kind of moving in the right direction, but they had no easy offense whatsoever. And so again, I it's not like I expect any sort of big things. Like I think BC is going to be back in the tournament. I certainly don't think that's going to be the case. But they're better than they were last year. And I think the market feels like they're still like by far the worst team in the ACC, which I disagree with. The other thing, I believe this is Red Bandana weekend at Boston College.
It is.
I don't know what that and so like, listen, I don't think it's certainly not the Red Bandana basketball game, but like people are going to start filing in for football. They may come early. You probably got some juice on campus. I'm not going to totally rehash the story, but it's a tremendous story. Go look it up. I had a friend that played for Boston College basketball, and like it's definitely like the energy on campus that weekend is always like next level, and in a positive way, because it really is that the story is, supposed to it's a positive spin on what was obviously like a tragic event. So you get this game in BC. I think they might have more juice than usual for a game like this, and the number is surprisingly Boston College is not taking money. I think this may have even come back a little bit. So I think BC runs them off the floor. They played on Monday. They looked pretty good. They lost a game that FAU basically needed a steal, a transition 3, and I believe they went into overtime and lost the game in overtime. It was a good effort. It was a good game. So I will make Boston College. I think we're at -16.5. That's going to be my parlay leg. And Garth, I'm fine with that team total under. I think you could play them both. I think they're correlated right there. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I wanted to wrap up a few things. You talk about the Citadel. I've got them as a bottom 30 team in the country right now. Yep. Maybe that's even generous to be that high. You said how you don't think they may not win a SoCon game this year. They did not win a SoCon game last year. So how many teams didn't win a conference game? That was a short list, I feel. I mean, I would have to look that up.
In my opinion, like they're on paper, they're much worse than they were last year, which is very concerning.
But, yeah, I mean, Ken Palm had them as a bottom 10 team by the end of the year last year. So when I say bottom 30, that might even be generous. I did want to also cheap plug, if I may. You mentioned the Red Bandana game. Trigg, obviously in football. I talked about that game. If anyone would like my opinion on SMU Boston College on the football field this weekend, I broke that game down on the Power 5, which is now available elsewhere here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. Don't forget, guys, to click subscribe. That way you'll be notified when these shows drop. You won't miss anything. We obviously go live every Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern. Please drop us a like in addition to all of your great comments that keep coming. And then one more point before we go to a different game, Trigg. I wanted to kind of give maybe a more firm outlook on that Bethune Cookman-Miami game that we kind of talked about a little earlier. I would not bet Bethune Cookman in this game. Not only is it the second of back-to-back roadies against power conference teams, let's not forget they went to overtime against Auburn. Let's not forget that they shot over 50%, not just overall, but nearly 55% from 3. I don't think Bethune Cookman's going to shoot 55% from 3 for a second straight road game against a power conference team, but that is just me.
Yeah, and I was talking about that, and then we can go to Rob. We'll kind of like give this game the attention I suppose it deserves after they nearly beat Auburn, took Auburn to overtime. But like this was quickly bet up, which I agreed with. I think this opened 14, quickly bet up to 17, like before you could even blink. I think that's probably where the Bethune Cookman-Miami game sits now. And again, I go back to Rob's point, and I'll let him bring this home. Quick turnaround, having to play another power conference team. You left it all out on the floor. You played Auburn into overtime, played extra basketball. Now you got to turn around. Like, I don't even really care what your opinion is on Miami. And I like this Bethune Cookman team. I was saying yesterday, I think that they could cash some tickets for you as we get into like SWAC play and them playing more competitive games. But this just seems like a horrific spot for a lot of the things that Rob sort of pointed out earlier. So I'll let him bring this one home.
Yeah, let's bring, I'm staring at the screen here with the comment from the chat, and I will just say that these analysis won't be thesis.
I gotta give Jay Buff a hard time about that comment, but I'm going to let you finish Bethune Cookman-Miami first.
Real quick. I think the reason why they sound like thesis early on is because we're trying to give everybody some sort of feel or idea of what we're looking at with these teams to start the season. Not everybody is, totally on top of college hoop right now. So I just feel like it's our job in this 60 minutes and Monday through Friday to give you the most we know about these teams, about these coaching changes. 6 games from now, there won't be in-depth talk about coaching changes, philosophy changes. We'll all know them by then. Yes. So I think that,
Rob, I got to jump in here real quick.
Learn while you earn.
No, and I'm gonna this will be our promo for the day. Listen, the 3 of us sell plays. We sell plays at a website called Wager Talk. We had this we're not coming to give the whole board out, right? We're only coming to talk about the games we can fit into the hour and give them the attention they deserve, the ones you guys request. If you want our opinions on the rest of the games or other games, you know where to find all our picks every day, all day, wagertalk.com. There's great specials up for where you can get all of our picks. Every pick I put out comes with full written analysis. You'll at least learn something, even on a day where I go 0-2, get a ton of CLV, but neither of my plays comes even close to covering. I feel like I still gave out something that you can learn from. So that's why we're not like in a rush to like nail every game on the board. That's not the kind of show this is. We're trying to dig into games that the chat requests and give you actionable information. I think we're doing that so far. And now I'll go to Brian Power.
I'll say on that note, just to follow up, we don't like to leave any stone unturned or leave any end loose. The Citadel was the only team in the country that did not win a conference game last year. The only one. It was a list of one.
Yeah.
I wanted to just, if people were wondering about that, so there was nobody else joining the Citadel on that.
And I'll go to Rod. Did you have anything final to say on Miami Bethune Cookman before we move on?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been stated here already, guys. I think it might be a little tough on Bethune Cookman. Let's not forget that not only was that, we called it a lay it all out game, but there's an extra 5 minutes played in that game where you thought you were going to win. There's potential to win that game. So it probably even goes beyond that and could be a good selling point if you want to make the Miami argument tonight. But again, like I said about Eastern Washington, the 3 of us being in the business for as long as we have, you try to be proactive with this stuff. In the Eastern Washington, what's been done the first 2 games probably applies way more to Big Sky when we get to, or it may apply at Thanksgiving week or whatever, when they're in these non-conference matchups where they're a heavily priced underdog. And the same with Bethune Cookman. I'd like to single these teams out early on. You like to forecast ahead. So keep an eye on Bethune Cookman, whether they win or lose tonight against Miami. If they lose, it's excusable. If they don't, they got something going on down there with Reggie Theus.
and one more thing with Bethune, Auburn had some home cooking going as far as the charity stripe went. Auburn was plus 29 in free throw attempts. Yes, the Auburn was 27 of 38 from the charity stripe in that game. Bethune Cookman, a paltry 8 for 9. So it was a home whistle there for Stephen
God
Pearl
we
and
let
his team.
Stephen Pearl lose.
Yeah. So that's something. I mean, it speaks well to how, right? I mean, to have that kind of free throw disparity go against you and to take Auburn. And I mean, that doesn't speak well to Auburn. But again, I think we're all kind of in agreement that it's just, you come off a loss like that where you laid it on the line 45 minutes, not just 40. Tough spot, especially because Bethune's not shooting the three as well as they did the other night. No way.
And just one other point there, like, maybe it's a good in-game betting opportunity. Like you might see them come out, give a huge effort. We just beat Auburn. We think we can win this game. First 10 minutes they hang around, and then suddenly you can get a better number than what is now kind of an inflated number off the open. Although, again, I think the number's probably where it should be. I think that opener was quite low, being 14, I believe was where that one opened. But again, just another way to look at it. Where did my comment just go? I have it on the screen. Ethan Bainbridge. We're going to see Ethan this weekend at the Bowling Green game by myself and Brian. Looking forward to that. He wants to know Jackson State plus the point. So one quality SWAC team to another. This is going to be Jackson State plus the points. They're playing Louisville tonight. Louisville won again. I don't. Does anyone remember the final of that game on Monday? I know they were up by 60 at one point against, I think, South Carolina State. So I'll throw it to one of you two. Obviously, Louisville a massive favorite again here, 38-point favorite. But I know that the two of you have kind of worked some team totals into the conversation with some of these big spreads like this. So I'll go to Brian first, and then Rob can follow up. Any way to get into this Louisville-Jackson State game for you?
I like the over. It was 104-45 against South Carolina State, to be precise there, Trigg. So Louisville, and then Jackson State, they didn't exactly play good defense against Illinois, did they? They gave up triple digits. Well, gave up 1.5 points per possession. That's something that I'll talk about throughout the year, guys. It's not just that raw number that they're giving up, but we talk about tempo all the time. Sometimes the number of points you're giving up, it's tempo based, but points per possession to me is always a very reliable metric, especially once you get into conference play. And they give up 1.5 points per possession to Jack. That is really, really atrocious. So I think Louisville, unless if Louisville just doesn't take the game seriously, comes in, sleepwalks, I think they're going to put up, there's no reason to believe they're not going to put up a big point total again. Will it be as big as the other night? I don't know. But I would just lean towards the over full game. Let's leave the team. Maybe Rob likes the team total angle better here, but I would just bet the just a traditional over in this spot. I think Jackson State's going to do enough to help get this one over.
Yeah, the team total here is 100. Now, it's pretty simple. The two head coaches here, Pat Kelsey and Mo Williams, both really want to go fast. I don't think, Jackson State gives up those points the other night because they're not going to slow down. Certainly Pat Kelsey teams are not going to slow down. So you're going to have a high scoring game here, Brian. I too would have, we just talked about Jackson State gave up over 100. Louisville scored over 100. So why not, Rob, say Louisville team total over 100? It's not that easy to get to 100. So I'd probably be way more in line with you, Brian, to say that this is going to be a high-octane game. Louisville probably makes a whole boatload of shots here. I don't know that there's a lot of resistance on the Jackson State defensive end, but you need two to get these things up and over. And I do think Jackson State's capable of, especially in a game, we've talked before about broken floor, easy buckets. In a game of that style, this number doesn't actually appear all that high to me. It's been bet up to 162.5. That seems very real. Like you could end up with a 95-74. I could see it. And, you cash your ticket here. So for me, it would probably be full game over.
Yeah. And one more thing. So Louisville was up in the opener 59-15 at halftime. Again, just to what we're saying here, if you don't think Louisville's going to play that well again, here's the argument why you want to not just isolate their team total. Jackson State, I think, shoots better than South Carolina State did against Louisville. Why do I say that? Because South Carolina State against Louisville shot 22.8% overall and just 10.5% from three. 2 for 19. So it wasn't even, I mean, they got up an okay volume of threes. I just think, I mean, is Louis, so even if you, so that's why another reason I think Rob just play the traditional over here. I don't think Louisville's going to put up those defensive numbers back-to-back nights. That's just when you have a defense, when the opponent shoots that poorly, yeah, you played some defense, but it also wasn't the opponent's night if they're shooting 2 for 19 from 3 and 22% overall from the floor.
No, and real quick, not to drag this out, but I'll make one more point on top of that. The fact that Louisville was up 59-15 at halftime and didn't stop scoring ought to tell you something about Pat Kelsey. From 59, they went to 104. It's not like they slowed down. That's an 82 possession game. They just kept going. I think that's probably what you'll see tonight. And to your point, you'll probably see a better offensive effort out of Jackson State. So it should get over that. Now, I hadn't really paid close attention to that game, but as the three of us talk it out here, it seems like that's a reasonable bet today.
Well, and I'll just go back to Ethan's original point. You know, his original point was, hey, Jackson State plus the points. Well, that, I mean, I think this conversation would lend itself to Jackson State plus the points making sense. This opened at like 30. It's up to 38. That's a pretty substantial
big number.
move.
Yeah.
It's a pretty substantial move. But like, here's the thing. Like, if you like Jackson State plus the points, you probably have to like the over as well. I feel like those are a little bit correlated. I think you're going to need Jackson State to contribute to get to that over. And if they contribute at all, and here's the thing, like Jackson State's another one of those couple teams at the top of the SWAC that I think are going to contend in that league this year. They're probably a much better team than the team that Louisville played on Monday. Just without like doing the numbers, I think I'd have Jackson State a substantial favorite over what I think it was South Carolina State. Yeah, if you get any sort of effort here from Jackson State, which, you know, they did play a big team on opening night in Illinois, but like by the second half of that game, I think they just kind of said, we got another game in a couple of days. Didn't really play any defense, gave up 53 points in the second half. So Ethan, I'm with you at the current number. I could only like Jackson State, but I think I'm with the boys here. I think over probably gets there in the end. All right, let's keep it moving. I've got about 8 minutes left. I'll go to Jay Buff. I wasn't giving him a hard. Someone's like, don't get it. Jay Buff's my boy. He lives here in Syracuse. So we just joke back and forth. I know he's met Brian. I don't know if Vino's ever met him, but he comes out to Turning Stone every once in a while. We always have a good time. And I'm going to go to his game, Quinnipiac, Central Connecticut State, because I have an opinion on this one. What's the current number on this? I feel like it was moving a little bit.
I got it varies, Adam, anywhere from opener of 9 down to 7.5, or you can I see some 8.5s out there too. So anywhere between 7.5 and 8.5.
Yeah, it's an interesting game for me. This is sort of like both in my neck of the woods, NEC versus MAC. Here's the thing with Quinnipiac. I said this before Monday's game against St. John's. I think Quinnipiac might be getting a little too much credit for Amari Monroe being on the roster. I mean, he was a guy that could have probably went to a high major if he wanted to leave Quinnipiac and enter the portal. He didn't. He stayed. It's certainly huge for them. But I have some question marks about the rest of that team. So I think I'll give them a pass. St. John's destroyed them the other night. This is obviously like a much different type game, but to turn around and think that they should be like a 9.5 point favorite here. And now I kind of see that's where it opened at 9. It looks like it's 8 most places right now. I definitely sort of agree with that move. Central Connecticut State is another one of these NEC teams that so I was actually at the final last year. Central Connecticut State, St. Francis ended up being a huge upset. The gym was stunned, and you could tell, everyone thought that they were going to win that game, go to the NCAA tournament. That was sort of like the team for them. It was, Jordan Jones, I believe, ended up being player of the year in that conference. He's a pro now. I mean, just like it was like heartbreak city for a program that finally thought they were going to go to the NCAA tournament with that team. And so I think the fact that they've lost the player of the year is maybe undervalued them a little bit because they did lose a couple of guys. But Pat Sellers is a fantastic coach, and this is still going to be a very good Central Connecticut State team. So I'm just not dying to lay 9 here with Quinnipiac. I would lean the dog. I like plus 8, 8.5, 9s. If it comes back to 9, that's a good bet. I lean towards Central Connecticut State. All right, back to the comments. Unless either of you have anything to add on that one. I didn't know if you guys had anything to add on that one.
I was
trust
looking
you.
here, guys, at this
Totally
North Florida.
fine. Yeah, let's go North Florida.
Game. 41.5 it's up to. The Florida team total here, guys, is 105.5. And I know North Florida is an absolute disaster, right? Matthew Driscoll, I think you pointed it out the other day, Brian. He moved on to be an assistant on the K-State staff. And they've hired from within. But the problem is, not only do you lose all 5 starters, but you only have like one guy, period, back from last year's team. The question is, does Florida want to pound somebody after losing to Arizona the other night? Do they want to take it easy, et cetera, et cetera? When I see 105.5, I think to myself, my goodness, that's just a huge number. I'd love to go ahead and take a whack at the under here on Florida's team total, but I don't know that I can get there with the current state of North Florida and not really knowing where Todd Golden's mindset is going to be. Is he going to drive these guys to get back on the horse and drill somebody and get your confidence back, or are they going to suffer a little bit of a hangover here? My personal opinion I would lean towards the latter, somewhat of a hangover off of the Arizona game, but it is at home in the O. That's a tough call there. Just those numbers were very interesting to me after we talked about the Louisville game.
Yeah. North Florida is one of those teams that obviously just lives and dies with the 3. They're just going to hoist a bunch of them up, hope enough of them go in. Obviously, Florida's not the kind of opponent you would think that a lot of them are going to go in. You think it. I mean, this is one of those situations. I mean, it could be a very long night for the Ospreys if they're not shooting well from 3. So I'll take the Campbell WVU game, by the way, since we hit that under in WVU. Yeah. I kind of agree. I think it might be another under here against Campbell for West Virginia. We hit the under against Mount St. Mary's earlier in the week. Campbell, it's interesting. You know, guys, you're going to look, if you just look at final scores, if you're saying, oh, what was the final score of Campbell's first game? You're going to see they lost by 32 points to Wisconsin, but that was a 5-point game with just over 8 minutes left. That's what we call a bad 8 minutes of basketball, Rob, to close things out. So it kind of a misleading final there for the Campbell side. As a matter of fact, a 29-2 run. If you're on the wrong end of a 29-2 run, that's not good. Campbell typically is better defensively. They typically guard the 3 well, and they don't play very fast. And we talked about what Ross Hodge is going to do in Morgantown, a fine college town, if I may add, as he comes over from North Texas. I think it's back-to-back unders for Dub VU to start the season.
Yeah, any coach who says we're going to play like the University of Houston, who wouldn't want to play like the University of Houston, and you lean under with that guy. And he comes from North Texas.
We are getting up against it, so I'll wrap the show up. I will say this: we comments in the chat, appreciate them. Listen, all the feedback is great, good, bad, and different. We like to hear it all. So hop into the comments on the YouTube show, on the YouTube replay. You can find the show on the Wager Talk YouTube channel on demand. If you missed any part of it, you can go back to the beginning. But jump in the comments, leave us a comment, let us know what you like, you dislike. If there's a game we missed and you want to hear something about it, one of us will jump in and give you a couple sentences to try to guide you in the right direction. We're going to get to as many games as we can while doing them justice during the hour. And we'll always end with a 3-team parlay, which we hope hits. Yesterday's didn't hit, but we started the year with back-to-back winning parlays. So, and also, we're going to keep a record, because I don't like when these shows give out picks and then don't keep a record. Like, you got to keep the record. So 2-1 on the parlay so far, but more importantly, the record, the parlay record is what the units are. And if you, for every dollar that you put on the parlay so far, if you're playing them even, you're up $10.40 for every dollar. That's a great start. And we're going to try to keep it going today. So without further ado, one more time, the 3-teamer for today, it comes out to plus 582 odds. Shop around. You can always do better if you shop around on these parlays. Brian Power is going to go with his alma mater, the Ohio Bobcats, on the money line, minus 115. I'm going to go with Boston College and lay the big number, minus 16.5. And then we've got a full game total for Rob Vino. That's UC Riverside, North Dakota, under 150. That's the 3-teamer today. We'll be back in the morning tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, to close out the week and every day, Monday through Friday. Hit the like button, and we'll see you guys in the morning.